Picture a silent battlefield where the enemy isn't made of flesh and blood, but of whispers, shadows, and unseen hands pulling at your thoughts. Darkness doesn't rush, it seeps, quietly rearranging what you believe, what you feel, until you can't tell where you end and it begins. And right there, standing still in the middle of it all, is Virgo. On the surface calm, modest, almost ordinary, but inside a precision so sharp and a light so steady that even the shadows hesitate. This isn't resistance. This is disruption, the kind that turns the tide without ever raising its voice. Virgo doesn't fight for attention. They fight for alignment. Every step they take pushes back against the quiet chaos most people never notice. And that's exactly why darkness fears them, because where others bend under pressure, Virgo bends the rules that darkness plays by. They don't just survive the storm, they rewrite the weather. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on 20 reasons why even the most relentless dark forces fear Virgo. And reason number 2, well, it's the one they wish you'd never hear. If right now, a face or a name just flashed into your mind, the person whose strength feels like this, drop the first letter in the comments. Because by the end of this, you'll understand exactly why that name showed up, and you might never see them the same way again. In a world that often feels like it's moving too fast, Virgo moves differently. They don't just keep up, they create a rhythm that can't be shaken, one that keeps chaos at bay. You'll notice it the moment you step into their space. Everything feels intentional. There's a quiet structure humming in the background, the kind that makes you breathe easier without even realizing it. That's not an accident. Virgo's discipline isn't about rigidity, it's about creating an unshakable foundation. And here's the thing: when life throws curveballs, that foundation doesn't crack. It's like an invisible firewall that chaos can't get past. Even the energies that feed on disorder know better than to linger too long near Virgo's well-ordered world. It's not just their habits that are formidable, it's their mind. Virgo sees patterns where others see confusion. They can sit in a room, listen to 10 different conversations, and somehow piece together the truth hidden between the words. They have this rare ability to dismantle lies the way a master watchmaker takes apart a timepiece carefully, without damaging the truth inside. If someone's spinning a story to manipulate the moment, Virgo will catch the shift in their tone, the inconsistency in their logic, the way their eyes move at the wrong time. And they won't just see it, they'll know exactly what it means. It's like watching fog burn away under the morning sun. But what makes this even more powerful is the heart behind it. Virgo doesn't analyze to control or dominate. They analyze to protect. There's a purity in their intention that's almost disarming. You can feel it when they look at you, that quiet, unwavering clarity that says, I want what's right, not just what's easy. And that's the kind of energy that can't be corrupted in a world where so many people operate with hidden agendas. Virgo's sincerity acts like a cleansing wind. It leaves no room for toxicity to take root. If you've ever had someone believe in you without judgment, without an angle, you've felt this gift. It's also why they're masters of patience. They're not the type to rush into a situation just to make something happen. They'll wait, watch, and gather every piece of the puzzle before making their move. That's not hesitation, it's precision. They know that the right action at the right time can change everything, and they're willing to hold their ground until that moment arrives. You can't bait them into chaos. You can't scare them into jumping before they're ready. And that infuriates the kind of people or forces who rely on impulsive reactions to gain the upper hand. Underneath it all, there's a strength that most people never see coming. It doesn't shout. It doesn't demand attention. It's the strength you notice when things start to fall apart, and Virgo is still standing, steady as ever. They don't crumble in the face of negativity. They absorb the shock, turn it into something manageable, and keep keep moving forward. This inner resilience isn't built overnight, it's forged from years of showing up, from weathering storms without losing themselves in the process. It's the kind of power that doesn't just protect them, it protects everyone who's lucky enough to stand within their circle. And maybe that's the real secret. It's not that Virgo fights darkness with force. It's that their very presence makes it hard for darkness to breathe. They create spaces in their homes, in their businesses, in their relationships where disorder can't thrive. And once you've felt that kind of stability, you understand why the forces that depend on chaos would rather stay far, far away. Some people walk into a room and immediately adapt to whatever's going on. Virgo is different. When they arrive, the whole atmosphere starts to shift, not because they're loud or demanding, but because they bring a sense of order that quietly rewrites the space around them. It's as if the room exhales and straightens itself out. Conversations feel more grounded. The chaos that was buzzing in the corners starts to lose its grip. This isn't about perfectionism, it's about harmony. Virgo has a natural instinct to create stability, and once it's there, it's hard to imagine the place without it. For anything or anyone that thrives on disorder, that level of balance is deeply unsettling. Part of their magic comes from the fact that they're not easily shaken. Fear and confusion, the two tools most often used to manipulate people, simply don't stick to them, while others might spiral in uncertainty. Virgo keeps their center. They can stand in the middle of a crisis, with emotions swirling like a storm around them, and still make clear decisions. This isn't cold detachment, it's wisdom. They know that reacting out of panic rarely leads anywhere good. That calmness is more than admirable, it's a shield. And for those who rely on stirring fear to gain control, that shield is impenetrable. Then there's their way of seeing people. Virgo isn't fooled by a polished smile or a carefully curated image. They have an eye for the tiny, tells the words that don't match the energy. The overcompensating charm, the subtle slip in a story. Without fanfare, they strip away the costume and see exactly who's standing in front of them. They're not looking to embarrass anyone, but they won't let deception pass unchecked either. It's the quiet confidence of someone who knows that the truth, once revealed, speaks for itself. Pretenders rarely stay long in Virgo's world, and they know it. What makes this even more unnerving for anyone with bad intentions is Virgo's sixth sense. It's more than logic, more than observation. It's that almost psychic awareness of when something is off. You can call it intuition, instinct, or simply deep connection to their own inner compass. They'll sense a hidden agenda before it has a chance to unfold. Sometimes it's just a subtle shift in the air. Other times, it's an unshakable feeling in their gut. And they trust it. That trust in their own perception is what keeps them safe, and often, it's what keeps the people around them safe, too. But perhaps the most strategic part of their nature is how they act once they decide to move. Virgo doesn't make clumsy, rushed decisions. They act with precision, cutting straight to the core of a problem like a skilled surgeon. Every step is deliberate, each choice considered. There's no wasted motion. That kind of accuracy doesn't leave much room for interference, which is why anyone who thrives on improvisation or throwing others off balance tends to fail against them. They're always one step ahead, not because they're lucky, but because they planned for the step after that. To put all of this together, the order they create, the calm they hold under pressure, the way they see through facades, the intuition that catches danger before it strikes, and the precision with which they move, and you start to understand why Virgo is such an unnerving opponent to any form of darkness. They don't just defend themselves, they neutralize the very tactics that would undo others. And they do it so seamlessly, you might not even realize it's happening until the dust has settled and you're standing in a space that feels, once again, whole. There's a particular kind of power that hides in plain sight, and Virgo wears it well. They're not interested in making a scene or announcing their every move. In fact, their humility is one of their most underestimated weapons. While others are busy showcasing their strengths, Virgo observes quietly, collecting information, reading the energy in the room. It's in that quiet where they build momentum, a kind of slow, steady current that's impossible to detect until it's already reshaping everything around them. Those who mistake humility for weakness never see the moment coming when Virgo shifts from observer to decisive actor. And when that happens, the change is irreversible. Part of this influence comes from the energy they carry. It's not just about a good mood or positive thinking, it's something deeper, almost tangible. When Virgo walks into a space that's heavy with tension or clouded with negativity, you can feel the shift. The air clears, conversations become calmer. It's like their very presence rearranges the frequency of the room. They don't have to call attention to it. They simply embody it. That purifying energy is more than comforting, it's a quiet act of protection. For anyone or anything that feeds on toxic energy, that shift is like watching the walls close in. But Virgo doesn't stop at simply cleansing a space. They build protections into it, layer by layer, often without anyone noticing, through their steady work, their attention to detail, and their constant tending to the environments and relationships they care about. They create invisible barriers. You won't see them, but you'll feel them in the way certain drama never takes root, in the way harmful intentions seem to lose momentum before they can land. These aren't the kinds of defenses that need to be rebuilt over and over. They're maintained daily through quiet consistency, the kind of effort most people underestimate but never forget once they've experienced it. That consistency is fueled by a determination that's almost unnerving. Virgo doesn't give up. It doesn't matter how long the process takes, how many times the plan has to be adjusted, or how many obstacles appear out of nowhere, they'll keep going. They're not chasing perfection. They're building something that lasts. And that's exactly why forces that thrive on quick wins and sudden collapse can't figure out how to beat them. You can't exhaust someone who finds strength in persistence. You can't scare someone who has already made peace with the long game. What makes them even more formidable is how they handle fear. Where most people let fear stop them in their tracks, Virgo treats it like data. They'll take that nervous energy, turn it over in their mind, and extract the truth from it. What's the real risk? What's just a story the mind is telling? And most importantly, how can this be used as a guide rather than a cage by turning fear into strategy? They rob it of its power. Fear becomes fuel, a spark that lights the next step rather than a shadow that keeps them frozen. And then there's the moral compass. For Virgo, justice and balance aren't lofty ideals, they're non-negotiables. In business, in friendship, in love, they seek harmony not just because it feels good, but because it's the only soil where trust can grow. They won't tilt the scales for convenience. They won't look the other way when something's wrong. And when they step in to restore balance, they do it with a steadiness that commands respect. For anything built on manipulation, greed, or chaos, that kind of unyielding fairness is the end of the road. Put all of this together, and you begin to see why Virgo isn't just resistant to darkness, they dissolve it. Without theatrics, without drama, without the need to prove themselves, they move through the world as both healer and protector, and in doing so, they create something rare, a space where good things can grow and last, untouched by the noise outside. Virgo has a rare gift, the ability to walk into the middle of chaos and turn it into harmony. They don't just tidy up the mess that's visible to everyone else. They sense the deeper fractures, the emotional knots, the hidden dissonance no one wants to talk about, and they start there, gently unraveling what's tangled until it's no longer a threat. This isn't about controlling everything, it's about restoring a balance that allows life to flow again. In their presence, even the most fractured situation finds its center. For anything that relies on disorder to thrive, that moment of balance is like losing its oxygen supply. That strength is rooted in something even more unshakable: moral integrity. Virgo doesn't bend their principles for convenience, approval, or gain. They know exactly where they stand. And that clarity is an anchor not just for themselves, but for everyone who trusts them. It's a shield you can't see, but you can feel, one that blocks manipulation, corruption, and anything that tries to sneak past in the form of half-truths or excuses. When they say yes, it's because they mean it. When they say no, it's because they've thought it through. And once the decision is made, you know it's built on something solid. For those who thrive on loopholes and moral gray areas, Virgo is an impenetrable wall. And then there's their capacity to heal not just the obvious wounds, but the ones you can't point to. The quiet griefs, the unspoken fears, the invisible damage that can linger for years without a name. Virgo has a way of noticing those fractures and tending to them without making a spectacle of it. They know that some healing happens in silence, in the right words spoken at the right time, in a hand on your shoulder when you didn't even know you needed it, in the space they hold for you without judgment. They don't just restore, they fortify, and that's why the forces that try to divide or weaken people see them as such a threat. Virgo repairs the very connections darkness works so hard to sever. But perhaps their most profound power is also their quietest. Virgo is a light, not a blinding, performative spotlight, but a steady glow that seeps into every corner where shadows try to hide. They don't announce themselves as saviors. They don't need to. Their presence is enough to shift the temperature of a room, enough to make dishonesty uncomfortable, enough to make fear start looking for a way out. That light doesn't waver when things get difficult. If anything, it shines more steadily, reminding everyone that strength doesn't have to roar to be felt. And because it doesn't demand attention, it can't be anticipated or easily resisted. By the time the shadows realize what's happening, they're already dissolving. For Virgo, this isn't about conquering anyone or winning a fight. It's about living in such a way that darkness simply has no foothold. Every act of order, every moment of patience, every layer of unseen protection, every restoration of harmony, it all adds up to an environment where the best parts of life can actually grow. And when you've experienced that, you understand Virgo doesn't just resist the dark. They transform the space so thoroughly that the dark has no choice but to leave. When you step back and look at the whole picture, it's impossible not to feel the weight and the beauty of what makes Virgo so extraordinary. Every quality we've explored, from the discipline that builds unshakable foundations to the silent light that dissolves shadows, isn't just a skill or a habit. It's a way of existing in the world, a way of holding space for truth, for balance, for the kind of goodness that doesn't fade when life gets hard. This is why even the most elusive forms of darkness keep their distance. It's not that Virgo is constantly fighting. It's that their very presence rewrites the terms of the battlefield. They don't chase chaos, they remove its fuel. They don't beg for fairness, they live in a way that demands it. And they don't wait for the right moment to be the light, they are the light. Even when no one is looking. For the forces that rely on confusion, fear, and division, that kind of consistency is the ultimate threat. Because how do you dismantle someone who cannot be bought, broken, or baited into losing themselves? How do you overpower a presence that heals the invisible wounds you've worked so hard to inflict? How do you outlast a spirit that draws its strength from patience, integrity, and the quiet, daily work of building something real? The truth is, you can't. Virgo's power isn't loud, but it's enduring. It's in the way they hold their ground without crushing others. It's in the way they protect without suffocating. It's in the way they restore balance without needing applause. This is what real influence looks like, not the kind that fades when the spotlight moves, but the kind that changes the room long after they've walked out of it. And here's the part I hope you carry with you. These strengths aren't only for defending yourself. They're for shaping the life you actually want. For creating environments where you and the people you care about can thrive without the constant noise of negativity. For building relationships rooted in trust. For running businesses that don't just profit, but also inspire. For living days that feel aligned with who you truly are. So if you've been wondering whether you have what it takes to stand against what's wrong, to protect what's good, to keep going even when the path feels endless, remember this journey we've just taken. You already have the discipline, the clarity, the heart, and the light. You've always had it. All that's left is to decide how you'll use it. And now, I want to hear from you. If you are a Virgo, or if you've ever had a Virgo change your life in ways you'll never forget, share your story in the comments. Write it for the people who need to know they're not alone in this kind of strength. Write it so that someone else, somewhere out there, will find the courage to step into their own light. Because that's what Virgo does best. They light the path, so the rest of us can find our way home. And if there's one thing I hope you take away from all of this, it's that strength doesn't always look the way the world tells us it should. It's not always loud. It's not always dressed in armor. Sometimes, it's a steady breath in the middle of chaos. Sometimes, it's the quiet refusal to compromise your values. Sometimes, it's the gentle way you hold space for someone else's healing even when they don't have the words to ask for it. Virgo reminds us that light can be a choice we make every single day. To show up with clarity when confusion would be easier. To hold the line when it would be simpler to give in. To believe in the possibility of restoration, even when the damage feels beyond repair. That's the kind of power the world needs more of, and the kind that leaves a mark long after the moment has passed. So tell me, what's the moment you realized your light or the light of a Virgo in your life was stronger than the shadows? Drop it in the comments, because your story might be the one that gives someone else the courage to keep going. And maybe this is what makes Virgo unforgettable, not just to the people who love them, but to those who once underestimated them. Because you can't forget the moment you realized they were the anchor in your storm, the one who kept the ground steady while the rest of the world was shaking. You can't forget the day you saw them stand between you and the thing that was trying to break you, not with shouting, not with force, but with that steady, immovable energy that says, "Not here, not now." Virgo's power isn't about dominating the room, it's about transforming it. They change the energy before they even say a word. They walk in carrying history, not just their own lessons, but the quiet wisdom of everything they've observed, endured, and survived. It's in the way they look at a situation and see 10 steps ahead, in the way they find a path when everyone else swears there isn't one. And when they decide to move, they move like they've been planning it for years, because maybe, in some way, they have. The truth is, Virgo doesn't just guard against darkness, they redefine the rules it plays by. They don't match chaos with chaos. They bring the kind of order that makes chaos irrelevant. They don't fight fear with bravado, they turn it into a strategy. They don't try to crush what's broken, they rebuild it stronger than it was before. And in doing so, they create a kind of security that's rare in this world, one you can feel in your bones. If you've ever been close to a Virgo, you know what I mean. You know how their steadiness makes you braver, how their clarity makes you see yourself more clearly, how their belief in what's right makes you want to rise to that same standard. You can feel their influence long after the conversation ends, long after the moment passes. That's not an accident. It's the legacy of someone who lives with intention. And here's the thing. This power isn't reserved for just special moments. It's in the way they handle everyday life, in the way they say no to what doesn't align, in the way they choose people who choose them back, in the way they let go when holding on would cost too much. It's in the way they protect their peace like it's sacred, because it is. For Virgo, peace isn't just a feeling, it's the ground from which everything else grows. That's why, when darkness looks for a way in, Virgo's world is a fortress. Not a fortress of cold walls and locked gates, but of light, trust, and unwavering truth. And in that kind of fortress, the right people feel safe, and the wrong ones can't breathe. So as you're hearing this, maybe you're realizing something. Maybe you're realizing that you've been that fortress for someone. Or maybe you're realizing you've had a Virgo in your life who's been that for you, the one who showed up when it mattered most. If so, this is the moment to tell that story. Drop it in the comments. Put it out there. Because someone out there, right now, is in the middle of their own silent battlefield, and your words might be the light they've been searching for.